Last week I had a conversation with Dr. Schulz about the limits of science, limits of scientific knowledge, and at the end he talked about science's inability to handle sacred texts. So I thought it was a beautiful insight he pulled from Dr. Marquardt. It's at the end of the conversation, and I can tell, boop, boop, that not everybody watched to the end, and so I'm pulling that bit of the conversation out and posting it up here for your edification. If you'd like to see the entire conversation, link in description. Thanks. God's peace be with you.
Kurt Marquardt, whom both of us, certainly Brian, but many of our listeners who will probably recognize as quite a blessing to the conservative Lutheran Church Missouri Synod that we're part of, because of the way he helped to analyze problems that we were having a generation or two ago. So here's what he says in his Anatomy of an Explosion. Listen to this. Science has neither use nor room for privileged authorities or sacrosanct texts. It recognizes only observations, experiments, logical inferences based on them, and reluctantly, whatever axioms or assumptions are necessary to sustain these operations. Now, at the time, Marquardt was criticizing a scientific or pseudoscientific approach to Bible interpretation, which is, for reasons we've been talking about, obviously a very bad thing to do. That would make the Bible something that has to fit within scientific presuppositions rather than being the authority, the ultimate authority that really is. But that first part of his statement, science has neither use nor room for privileged authorities or sacrosanct texts. So, did I have that on the screen?
No, but
okay, so you got the quote. Yeah, sorry. So
I want you to build on that, but maybe just a quick on this. Does science know that about itself? Does it have that self-awareness that it lacks the capacity to, or I mean, does my question make sense?
Well, I think, how about if we just make one quick cut in here? I think the scientists, by and large, who show up in the legacy media telling us things about how we have to act or what we have to do to our neighbors or have done unto us because of the COVID virus, right? They have no hesitation about entering into the area of moral authority. I do know a lot of scientists, you probably do too, who are not cursed with that arrogance, who have a humility about what they're doing and understand, as many of us should, what our areas of expertise can bring to the conversation, but that we are not omniscient or omnipotent or all embracing. So a big problem for us is that a lot of the science, that in the way it's used popularly and the way it's used in public education and probably university education overall too, is granting complete authority to the scientific method or to scientists prognosticating on things. And that this is beyond their purview. Just to take a real easy example and a quick one. If you think about let's see, contemporary science books that write about how the universe started or how the universe is going to end up, I'd like to point out that that's actually beyond the reach of physics and science. Physics and science can operate on the universe as it is, but they are utterly incompetent if it comes to questions of origin or destiny for the universe, right? So what passes for cosmology should confine itself to the cosmos as it is, and I would think, if they're being true to their own methods, to the scientific method as it is, and not presume to do theological or philosophical work as if they've got competence in those areas of origin and destiny and so forth. And then this really does come to a head today. First of all, in education, the problem is the scientism, the mindset that uncritically declares whatever we need to know, science does it for us. And this truly bizarre assumption that science is going to make our lives better, even though science doesn't know what human life is. And then we've got pronouncements, certainly the most immediately egregious, by people like Fauci and other spokespersons who are, let's just say this in line with Marquardt's comment, who have no room for sacred texts of any sort in their methodology or their training or their conversations. I don't think I have ever heard the oft quoted authorities on, quote, the science of COVID. I don't think I've ever heard one of them ever quote the Declaration of Independence or the First Amendment to the Constitution. In other words, the sacred scriptures of the United States of America are beyond the purview, apparently, of the COVID science. So how good is this knowledge for us? How helpful is this knowledge in the final determination? Let's also realize that when people of religious integrity, and I mean Jewish and Christian people of the book, of the text, when they seek to speak up, just look at how dismissive the people telling us about the COVID science and what it means for our lives really are. When, of course, we notice that it's actually religious institutions that are coming under the microscope of COVID policies. So no room for sacred texts. Let's take the moderate step. No room for the sacred American texts, obviously. This is a major liability. How can you provide, quote, scientific reasoning that's appropriate for violating the Declaration of Independence and the US Constitution if you're never even taking the Constitution and the Declaration of Independence seriously in your methodology to begin with? If you can't speak about it scientifically, let's quote Wittgenstein, shut up about it scientifically.